The Alph Cook Cave by S.C. Turnbo. The head prongs of West Sugarloaf Creek in Boone County, Arkansas, is a picturesque locality. The deep, rough hollows as they wind their way toward the creek, and the hills as they loom up, form a fascinating view. Now, on the west prong of the creek is situated a noted cave, and is a mile or more up this hollow, and is something near 3½ miles northwest of Elixir Springs. Now, this cave was of considerable prominence among the old-time hunters of that section, and was more so in war times as a place of refuge for a number of the inhabitants. Now, its formation is an interesting study for those who love and admire nature's art. A high rock wall extends some distance along the mountainside, terminating at one end with the cave, and is near 3/4 of a mile north of Lead Hill and the Harrison Wagon Road. Bill Treadway informed the writer that soon after the close of the war, and while he was still a little fellow, he and his brother Ben Treadway, and Jim and John Wagner, sons of John Wagner, who lived on West Sugarloaf, just below the mouth of the hollow that the cave is in, and along with Mark Bell and John Bell, sons of Matt Bell, Tom Keeling and Frank Keeling, sons of Abe Keeling, and Carter Smith, son of Ira J. Smith, Bob Jackson, son of Jim Jackson, Green Jackson, son of Dick Jackson, and Albert Upton, son of Jim Upton, would meet at this cave of Sundays and romp all day. Now, the Wagner boys were very venturesome, for they would get on top of the precipice, which was the highest, and sit down on the edge of it and let their feet hang over. I recollect one occasion when we had started a big rock rolling down the steep hillside. We found a sledgehammer, a pair of tongs and nippers, and several other things of various descriptions that had been put under this rock by someone during the war for safe keeping. Now, I am told, continued Mr. Treadway, that one day during the early settlement of the country, a deer, while being hotly pursued by dogs, leapt over this precipice and was killed. Now, in the month of February, 1865, when the war was at its greatest heat in this part of Arkansas, a few men were killed at this cave. Among those who met death here was Alph Cook, Ed Brown, Alph Dean, and Hiram Russell. Now, I am told there are several other men in the cave, but their lives were spared. John E. Cook, son of Alph Cook, who was 16 years old at the time of this memorable incident, informed the writer that his father and Mr. Russell were shot down in the mouth of the cave, but Brown ran the gauntlet of armed men at the mouth of the cavern and succeeded in getting a quarter of a mile from the cave before he was finally slain. Now, after the men had been shot down, a few of those who were permitted to live were allowed to take charge of their bodies, and they buried them the best they could under the circumstances. Now, in mentioning the interment of the 3 bodies, John E. Cook said that an ox wagon pulled by a yoke of cattle was brought into the hollow below the cave, and the dead men were carried down the mountainside to the wagon and placed in the wagon box and hauled 4 miles and stopped a ½ mile of the old Abe Keeling place, where a grave was dug and a plain coffin prepared for the reception of the body of his father, and a box for each of the bodies of the others. Now, my father, Hiram Russell, Ed Brown, were buried in the same grave. My father's body was placed between the 2 others, said Mr. Cook. Now, Alph Cook was an early settler in Taney County, Missouri, and lived 6 miles north of Forsyth. Now, for this reason, and the way he was killed here, this cavern is known far and wide as Alph Cook Cave. Now, 29 years after the occurrence of this bloody scene of those troubled days, this writer visited the spot to examine the cave where the men took shelter and were shot down. But I did not tarry long. Now, the opening of the cavern is large and roomy, with an overhanging cliff of rock. And as I stood at the entrance of the cavern, thoughts of those sad and gloomy days of terror whirled through my mind, and as I viewed the fragments of those once fortified breastworks that a few Southern men had constructed during the war to defend the mouth of the cave from attack, I imagined I could see the bleeding forms of dying men that were killed lying here at my feet, and I could feel their spirits hovering over me, and I was overwhelmed with superstition. I turned around and fled down the mountainside into the hollow and went my own way. This was the 22nd of June, 1894, and this was my last and only visit to this noted cavern.